The silence before the storm. The stars were quiet that day. Too quiet. Captain Rayna Morgan stood on the bridge of the Helios Dawn, staring at the black screen in front of her. No signals, no messages, no signs of life. Only a silent planet spinning slowly beneath them. Once green, now gray. Sornari Prime, home of Earth's closest allies, was gone. 3 weeks ago, the Sornari had sent a distress call. It was weak, full of static, and ended in a scream. Then nothing. The Sornari were a peaceful race, known for art, medicine, and diplomacy. They had stood beside humanity when no one else in the galaxy would. They had bled with us, traded with us, and even died beside us during the siege of Vega. And now, they were silent. Rayna clenched her fists behind her back. Around her, the crew said nothing. They had seen the surface scan cities reduced to ash. Forests burned, oceans blackened, not a single life form detected. Not one. Lieutenant Corin, a young communications officer, broke the silence. "Captain," he said quietly, "we found something." Rayna turned, her voice steady but sharp. "What is it?" He tapped a few keys, and a small section of the planet zoomed in. Amid the ruins, a strange shape appeared, a symbol carved into the stone of a destroyed temple. It was not Sornari writing. It was a mark, a symbol of the Krolax Empire, Rayna's. Blood ran cold. She remembered the brief war 5 years ago, when the Krolax tried to seize neutral systems. The Sornari stopped them with Earth's help. It was short and brutal, and the Krolax retreated after losing a third of their fleet. Humanity thought it was over, but monsters remember, and monsters wait. "What else did you find?" Rayna asked, her voice a razor's edge. Corin hesitated, then pressed another key. A distorted image filled the screen, taken from a broken camera on the ground. It showed Sornari civilians running, children screaming, buildings collapsing. In fire, in the final frame, before the image cut out, someone had written 3 words on a wall in red. "Your friend screamed." Rayna stared at the words for a long time. The crew behind her waited, not speaking. In that moment, something changed in the air. The sorrow turned into steel, the silence into warning. Commander Dax, her second in command, stepped closer. "What now, Captain?" he asked. Rayna didn't turn. "Send a message to Earth," she said. "Encrypted, eyes only." "What should we say?" Dax asked. Rayna looked at the screen again, her voice cold and clear. "Tell them this wasn't a war," she said. "This was a massacre. And the ones who did this just declared war on us." The engines of Helios Dawn roared as the ship pulled away from orbit, but not before leaving behind a silent probe to watch the dead world, to remember and to record. As the stars swallowed the ship, Rayna stood in her quarters, staring at a photo. It showed her and Ambassador Leeler from the Sornari, laughing at a peace summit on Mars. That was only 2 years ago. Now Leeler was likely dead, burned, or crushed. And all for what? Revenge? Hatred? Fear of peace? Rayna didn't know. But she knew one thing. Humanity would not forget, and humanity would not forgive. Across Earth's defense network, silent alarms began to flash. In deep space, old ships powered on ships never meant to be used again. In black vaults, war plans were dusted off. And one file was opened for the first time in decades. Project Black Ember. The galaxy would soon remember what Earth was capable of. Not because humanity loved war, but because humanity loved its friends, and someone had just killed them all. The silence was over. The storm was coming, and Earth would be the fire. The letter Earth never sent Earth never answered with words. Not this time. Not after what they saw on Sornari Prime. There were no speeches, no peace offers, no official broadcasts. Only silence from Earth's government. But behind that silence, a storm was growing. In a secret underground facility beneath the Siberian ice, Admiral Lena Hayes walked down a cold hallway toward a vault sealed for over 40 years. 2 guards. stood outside the door, armored and silent. They didn't salute her. They only stepped aside. She placed her hand on the scanner. The vault hissed open. Inside was Earth's darkest promise. A black terminal pulsed with a red light. On the screen was one name, Project Black Ember. Hayes exhaled slowly. She whispered, "They asked for this." And then she activated the protocol. Every starship captain across Earth's defense fleet received a silent message. 3 words, encrypted and urgent. Prepare for judgment, back in orbit. The Helios Dawn had returned to Earth. Captain Reyna stood before the United Earth Council, some council members wore grief on their faces. Others wore fear. They wanted to talk, to wait, to send a message. But Reyna had already written the message in her heart, and that message was fire. They carved their reply into the bones of our allies. She said coldly, "They made children scream to get our attention, and now they will hear us." An alien ambassador from the Galactic Council stood to speak. A tall, silver-skinned creature named Varanith. "Captain," he said gently, "the Krolax are a sovereign power. If Earth retaliates, you risk dragging the galaxy into war." Reyna didn't blink. "They already started the war." She replied, "They just didn't think we'd finish it." The room fell quiet. The Council had seen humanity fight before. But this felt different. This wasn't defense. This was judgment. And judgment would not come through diplomacy, while politicians argued in chambers. Earth's military was already moving. Satellites repositioned, orbital weapons charged, deep. Space relays were jammed. Earth didn't want Krolax reinforcements to call for help. And in the dark reaches of the Sol system, a ship left the hangar. It was the Vengeance-class dreadnought, ESS Raptor, a ghost ship powered by anger. It had no decorative flags, no painted insignias, only steel and purpose, and a single message, carved on its bridge wall, for the fallen. Meanwhile, on the Krolax homeworld, General Vodak watched a quiet transmission. It was a simple image, a flower from the Sonari homeworld, burning slowly in the wind, no words, no threat, but he understood, and for the first time in his brutal career, he felt fear. He had ordered the destruction of Sonari Prime. He thought Earth would hold meetings, draft sanctions, send warnings. He forgot one thing. Earth didn't cry for allies. Earth answered. The letter Earth never sent was already flying through space. Not written with ink or spoken in language, but forged in engines, railguns, and plasma. Every Krolax ship on the border began to vanish. No explosions, just silence. Ghost fleets came and went like shadows, and every Krolax outpost found only one thing left behind, a memory crystal with Sonari voices, laughing, singing, whispering, followed by a whisper in human voice. "You took them from us. Back on Earth?" Captain Reyna stood beside Admiral Hayes in the war room. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. The time for diplomacy had ended. The galaxy would soon understand. This wasn't revenge. This was the price of breaking a bond with humanity, and the bill was due. Judgment ships. The Krolax didn't see them coming. No one ever did. Not until it was far too late. Not until the stars above their colonies went dark. Not until their war stations lost power and screamed their last alerts into silence. Not until the humans arrived not as diplomats, but as ghosts wrapped in steel. They called them judgment ships. Humanity never gave them official names. They didn't need to, because when they appeared, the message was always the same. We remember, and we are here. Captain Arlen Drake stood at the helm of the ESS Scourge. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He only waited. The ship drifted without lights, without sound, cloaked deep in the shadows of a dying moon. Beneath him were 20 Krolax supply convoys, unarmed, unprotected. The humans weren't attacking fleets or fortresses first. They were cutting the throat of the Empire in the dark. Drake raised a single hand. No dramatic countdown, no war cry. Just one silent gesture, and the scourge opened its belly. In seconds, invisible rail slugs tore through Krolak's engines. Their fuel cores erupted into blue fire. 1, 2, then 5 cargo ships vanished. A 6th tried to run, but its navigation died mid-jump. The rest never even had time to scream. From far above, it looked like stars blinking out, one by one, until there was only cold and smoke. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Judgment ships had no patterns. They struck from asteroid fields, black nebulae, even behind moons of peaceful worlds. Every time they left behind one thing: a Cernari lullaby playing on repeat, followed by silence. The Krolaks were confused at first. They had never seen war like this. No announcements, no banners, no honor, just erasure. Back on Earth, Admiral Hayes listened to the casualty reports. 0 human losses, the AI reported. 72 Krolaks vessels neutralized. Confirmed transmission. Left behind? She asked. Yes, Admiral, the AI replied. Message delivered. This is only the beginning. The Galactic Council met in emergency session. 12 species sat at a round table. Each screen showed red alerts blinking over Krolak space. Ambassador Rilov of the Jalari leaned forward. I warned them, he said. You don't take from Earth and expect silence. The Sarnic diplomat clicked his mandibles, nervous. They're not even responding to our messages, he said. They don't need to, Rilov replied. They already gave their answer. At the edge of the Krolak's empire, Outpost 917A went offline. The outpost commander, Drell Voss, stood, trembling in his command chair. Moments ago, every satellite around his station had turned inward, as if something blocked the stars. Then, nothing. All screens went black. No damage, just silence. His last words before the comms cut off were recorded by his terrified aide. He whispered, They're not soldiers. They're memories made of steel. Judgment ships were not. Made for conquest, they weren't designed to hold territory. They were built to deliver messages to those who thought Earth could forget. Every strike was a sentence. Every silence that followed was a warning. Humanity would not stop, not until the Krolaks had no stars left to hide under. And across a burning sky, the words echoed, from planet to planet, from ruined convoy to smoldering. Fleet, this is for the friends you killed. The names of the dead they thought Earth would forget. They thought grief would fade. But humans don't forget. They carry pain like fire in their hearts. And when the fire grows too strong, it turns to judgment. The first memorial ship was launched from Luna Base. It was not a warship. It had no weapons, only a single, massive speaker system that echoed across subspace, and a list, a long, slow list, name after name, voice after voice, every Sonari civilian who had died on their homeworld, recorded, remembered, repeated, one name every 5 seconds, 400,000 names, spoken day and night. Across every Krolak system in range, it started as a whisper, then became a storm. The names didn't stop, even when Krolak ships tried to jam the signal. Even when they destroyed the satellites, the signal came back stronger. Broadcast from judgment ships, from drones, from ruins, from the stars themselves, it seemed every time a name was read, a Krolak station went offline. Every time a name echoed, a war factory lost power. Every name was a weapon, because every name had a soul behind it, and Earth made sure those souls were not forgotten. In the war room, Admiral Hayes stood beside a massive screen. It showed red dots disappearing one by one, each dot labeled with the time and the Sonari name it was tied to. Captain Reyna stood beside her, eyes hard. No targets left on Grid 6, said the AI. Upload new batch of names, Hayes ordered. Reyna whispered under her breath. Let them feel every one. On her broken Krolak's moonbase, General Carrix fell to his knees. He couldn't shut out the voices. His own soldiers were crying in their quarters. The list never stopped. and with each name came loss of power, of command, of hope. He looked up to the stars and screamed, "Why won't they talk? Why won't they negotiate?" But the stars only answered with another name, and then another, and then a whisper in a human voice. You should have listened when they cried. Across neutral space, alien traders began painting their ships with Cernari flowers, not to show support, but to avoid being mistaken for enemies. Galactic markets shut down, borders closed. Everyone was waiting to see what Earth would do next. They didn't have to wait long. The memorial ship broadcast a final message. A child's voice, trembling and soft. "My name is Tira." The voice said, "I was 7. I liked stars and drawing and dancing. And you took that?" From me. Then silence. Moments later, a Krolax capital ship exploded without warning. No beam, no missile, just shattered from the inside out. No one ever figured out how. The message was clear. Earth's grief had learned how to aim, and every name in that list was now a trigger. In a council chamber deep beneath Earth's surface, scientists, artists, soldiers, and survivors stood in quiet agreement. This was no longer war. This was remembrance turned into retribution. And they would finish what the Krolax started, because to Earth, those names weren't just voices. They were reasons, they were fuel, they were friends, and the galaxy finally understood. The dead were not silent, not when Earth remembered them. The last friend's voice, they searched the ashes of Cernari Prime for weeks, not for revenge, but for something to hold on to, something that still lived, something that proved there was more than fire and loss. And then they found her, a single life form signal, buried beneath the ruins of a collapsed city dome. A heartbeat, faint but real. The rescue crew broke through layers of twisted metal and scorched stone. And at the center, wrapped in torn silver cloth, was a child. She was Cernari, maybe 8 years old, eyes glowing faintly with bioluminescent tears, hands clutching a broken necklace with a human symbol. The crew didn't speak. They just stared. And in that moment, they didn't see a survivor. They saw a reason. Her name was Alea. She didn't speak at first, not for days. They gave her water, food, shelter, light. But she just sat there, staring into space, until she saw the broadcast of the names, her mother's name, her brother's, her teacher's. She whispered, "You remember them." And then she began to cry. And then she began to speak. They recorded her voice and sent it to every ship, every base, every council. No edits, no effects, just her truth. "My name is Alea," she said. "I lived on Cernari Prime. I had friends. I had dreams. And then they came. They burned our home. They laughed when we begged. I heard my mother scream while they pulled me away. I thought no one would remember us. I thought no one would come. But you did. You heard us. You didn't forget." She paused, her voice breaking, and then she looked into the camera and said the words that shook the stars. "Show them what love looks like." When it's angry, that single line played on repeat across human fleets, engraved on weapons, printed on armor, burned into memory banks. It was not just a message. It was a war cry wrapped in sorrow, a voice so soft it broke armies. The Krolax tried to jam the signal, but it was too late. The galaxy had already heard her, and many began to step back from the Krolax in fear. For the first time, the Council considered sanctioning them, not Earth, because even the most neutral species could no longer deny the truth. The war had changed. It was no longer a retaliation. It had become a reckoning, and Alea's voice had become the heartbeat of Earth's fury. In the shadows, Earth's eye-driven fleet moved with more precision than ever. Each judgment ship now carried a fragment of Alea's voice in its core. As they struck, her words played quietly over enemy frequencies, and even hardened Krolax soldiers began to tremble, not from weapons, but from the weight of the truth they could no longer silence. One captured Krolax officer was interrogated aboard a human station. He asked for one thing before speaking: turn off the child's voice. He begged. It haunts me. But they didn't, because Earth didn't come to comfort monsters. They came to answer pain with justice, and so Leia's voice echoed across burned skies and silent battlefields, not just as a reminder, but as a promise that no matter how far evil runs, if you hurt Earth's friends, Earth will find you, and Earth will answer. No graves for tyrants, the Krolax finally begged. After hundreds of their outposts burned, after their fleets vanished without wreckage, after the names of the dead echoed through every command chamber, they finally asked for peace. But peace does not return when you bury it under the bones of children. Earth did not answer, not with words, not with offers. They answered with silence and movement. Ships launched from Saturn's dark hangars, silent, black, and nameless, each one carrying no flag, no crew, only a single mission, target, the Krolax High Council, all 10 members, scattered across systems, hiding in bunkers, protected by fleets. They believed they were untouchable, but they didn't understand what Earth had become. Not a nation, not a species, but a force. The first counselor was taken in his sleep. No explosions, no alarms. His guards found only a cold metal feather placed on his bed. Later, they found his body drifting in orbit, eyes open, face frozen in horror. The second was found locked inside. His own vault, the cameras had shut off for only 13 seconds. But it was enough. A single word was scratched onto the inner wall. Leia, the others began running, changing planets, identities, hiding behind hired mercenaries. But it didn't matter. Earth didn't need to find them. Memory did. One by one, the tyrants fell, and for each one, Earth left nothing behind. No graves, no headlines, no explanation, only silence. Because tyrants do not deserve to be remembered. Only the ones they tried to erase do on Earth. Admiral Hayes stood at the observation deck, watching the quiet stars. Captain Reyna stood beside her. Silent. Their empire is collapsing, Reyna said. They've lost communication across half their territories. Hayes nodded slowly. They should have brought flowers, she whispered. Instead, they brought fire. So now they get ours. Back in neutral space. The Galactic Council panicked. Species that once doubted Earth now feared their every silence. Ambassadors pleaded for negotiations, for restraint, but Earth didn't reply, because some things are not meant to be forgiven. Some debts must be paid in full. In the center of the collapsed Krolax Empire, a single structure still stood, their capital a fortress once believed impenetrable, until the sky above it cracked open, and a judgment ship descended like a falling star. No weapons, no crew, just a single pod. Inside it, a message, not to the Krolax, but to the galaxy. This is not war, the message said. This is remembrance. You kill one of ours, we remember forever. You kill all of them, and we become that memory. A memory that hunts, a memory that judges, a memory that ends you. And with those final words, the Krolax capital went dark. Its gravity reactor imploded inward. The city was swallowed by its own shadow. No survivors. No retaliation. Just silence. The kind of silence that comes after a scream. The kind that never truly ends. Because Earth had no interest in holding power. No interest in ruling empires. They only had one goal. To make sure the ones who screamed were never forgotten, and the ones who made them scream, never forgiven. The fire we left behind the war ended, but there were no fireworks, no parades, no cheers, just quiet, a silence so heavy it stretched across the stars, because the Krolax Empire was gone, not conquered, not ruled, just erased. No human flag was planted, no territory claimed. Earth didn't want thrones. They only wanted the universe to remember what was lost and what was paid, on the ruins of Sonari Prime. The sky was blue again. Flowers had started to grow. Where ashes once covered the ground, children from a dozen species now walked across the rebuilt city, learning stories in schools shaped like stardust. At the center stood a monument not tall, not grand, just simple, a circle of stone, with a single phrase carved in human and Sonari script. They were not forgotten. Ele stood there, now older. Her eyes no longer full of fear. She placed her hand on the stone and whispered, "Thank you," not to a government, not to a soldier, but to everyone who remembered. Admiral Hayes never returned to active command. She vanished after the final broadcast. Some say she walks among the stars now. Others believe she became part of Earth's memory, a spirit of silence, watching. Captain Reyna retired quietly. She opened a school on Mars, named after the last Sonari ambassador, every morning. She told her students a simple truth. Justice is not about punishment. It's about not letting the wrong things be forgotten. The Galactic Council passed a law. No world could harm another without facing the Ember Protocol. They didn't need Earth to enforce it. The fear alone was enough, because Earth never said what the Ember Protocol truly was, but everyone remembered what happened when it activated. Judgment ships were stored deep in void vaults, their engines off, but not dismantled, never dismantled, because memories, they don't die, they only wait, and so Earth went silent again, not out of weakness, but out of choice, because the loudest voice in the galaxy was no longer the one that shouted. It was the one that whispered, a whisper that said, "If you take our friends, we won't take your lands, we won't take your gold, we'll take your legacy." Some feared that silence, others respected it, but all remembered it, because even now, in forgotten corners of the stars, where tyrants dream of conquest, they pause before they strike and ask one quiet question: will Earth remember this? And when the answer is yes, they stop, because memory is stronger than fear, and grief, when carried by Earth, burns hotter than any sun. That is the fire we left behind, not to destroy, but to remind that we never forget and we never stop loving. The ones we lost, even across galaxies, even across time, even across silence, the fire stays, the stars remember.